Hello, good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. This bulletin is coming to you live from the Joy 99.7 FM studios, Kokumlemle in Accra, at digital address G80993341. Also live on Love 99.5 FM in Kumasi, affiliates across the country, including Pad FM in Damongo, Jubilee FM in Keta, and Sunshine FM in Boko. It's on ABN Radio in London and around the world at myjoyonline.com. The news is brought to you by UMB Bank, UMB Speed Up, Digibank, Let's Go, Super Sim Cement, Build Your Dream, and Teleso 4G, just a touch. In this edition,
if you are in doubt about any product, protect yourself, because obviously the FDA will not be around you whilst you are shopping to tell you what to buy or what not to buy. Ask questions when you are buying these things.
Food and Drugs Authority directs consuming public to be wary of pre-prepared foods being sold on the market after AMA public health officials uncovered substances traders add to food being sold on the market.
Sometimes we see them milled fresh tomatoes and they are selling, and the color is so red. This is what mostly they add to it.
We'll hear from them and speak to a food safety expert who says the FDA is not working hard enough to protect consumers. Peace Council chairman says widespread public outrage on controversial sexuality education inclusion in curriculum shows Ghanaians are not ready for importation of any alien culture.
Ghanaians have values, have a culture, and we are not ready to go to do what the other people are doing in their countries.
We have details as he advocates the thorough stakeholder engagement on any form of sex education to be inculcated in Ghanaian school curricula. Energy think tank Africa Center for Energy Policy warns delay by government to make its position on PDS saga known could have dire implications as Parliament prepares to engage the Energy Minister over the scandal.
The leadership of Parliament to engage the appropriate minister to come to some determination on that.
We speak live to ASEP. We have sports.
As we await the outcome of the vetting process of the Ghana FA elections, a top management member of Accra Great Olympics says it will be a big blow should any of the presidential candidates be disqualified.
And later, I have an advice for you. Get closer to your wife's breasts and stop chasing breasts outside your home.
A lot of married men have stopped going to their wives' breasts. They would rather go and look for breasts outside the home to play with. They should go to their wives' breasts so that if there's a lump, you will also be able to identify it.
We have more from a breast cancer advocate as we mark Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Do stay for details here on the Midday News with me, Emefa Apo. We settle for the details now. And in our very first story for this afternoon, the Food and Drugs Authority has directed the consuming public to be wary of pre-prepared foods being sold on the market. It comes after public health officers of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly uncovered some substances that traders and food vendors at the Makola market add to food to either preserve or color it. They also found that the condor you use for your banku is possibly mixed with lime. The team also found yesterday during the Joy Clean Ghana campaign that the traders either had their health cards expired or non-existent at all. Nancy Emefa-Jadosi was with the team and has a wrap of all activities for day 5.
We'll be entering the corn mills. They have some composition that they do, mix it up to grind and then sell.
Inspector Joseph Asetanga there, telling what the team will be looking out for. First stop, the pepper mill. Even before the team will uncover filth, he confessed to not having a health card.
One of the AMM man, he said he's going to do it for us.
No.
When we entered, cockroach-infested mill with wires hanging loosely got the inspector disturbed.
Can you see cockroaches all over? So you blend this thing with cockroaches all over. If you don't meet the standards that you are supposed to operate, you will not allow you to operate.
Joseph Asetanga discovered a polythene bag that contained what appeared to be red seeds.
Everywhere they use it. How safe is it? Oh, we are selling the market.
Simultaneously, the team impounded a sack full of these mysterious seeds from this woman who also didn't have a health card.
Sometimes we see them milled fresh tomatoes and they are selling, and the color is so red. This is what mostly they add to it.
We moved from pepper to the corn mill, only to find the corn mixed with lime. The operators were divided over the purpose of the lime.
The scent comes to the inside. That's why we use this one, so that the corn will never be sent.
But since you said if the corn is spoiled, that is why you add this. The corn is dirty. It's dirty.
Even worse, the entire place was covered in dust.
This is food house. You produce food here. Look at how you hang your clothes.
The officers ordered a shutdown.
Now we will stop you from operating right now and clean the place before we will allow you to operate.
The fufu pounding mill was the next point. The operator's health card had expired and the fufu was also left uncovered. What the team didn't know, however, was these mills had channeled their liquid waste to this drain. The drain has become a cocktail of freezers, pepper, fufu in a floating pot of plastics. Mr. Asitanga gave all the traders 3 days to clear the mess before reopening their businesses.
Nancy Emefa-Dwadosi with that wrap there. Now, the substances, according to Joy News sources, have been handed over to the Food and Drugs Authority for analysis. Food scientist at the FDA, Kofi Esel, tells Joy News the authority is working on strategies to ensure foods are being produced under hygienic conditions. He's also urged the consuming public to be wary of pre-prepared foods being sold on the market.
It is through the public education, the continuous and consistency in the public education, and probably review the approaches that we currently have for the informal sector so that we can come up with more and more robust public education program also for the consumer. But I will advise you, if you are in doubt about any product, to protect yourself, because obviously the FDA will not be around you whilst you are shopping to tell you what to buy or what not to buy. And you and I don't have even the slightest idea of how condom that has lime in it will look like, because it's unusual thing that we are observing for the first time. And so what I would say is that buy from known retailers. Ask questions when you are buying these things so that they will give you that sort of guarantee. And if you have doubts about anything, please don't use it. You can report it to the FDA. But for now, my advice to retail consumers is that if you're going to buy on these commodities, please ask questions. Buy from known persons. If you have pre-packaged versions of that commodity, buy them, because these ones have been vetted, these ones have been evaluated, and we know the sources, and we can guarantee that they are safe for use. We will up our game, but we expect the consumers to also do their bit in order to safeguard our health.
You are there, Kofi Esel. He's with the FDA. Well, a food safety expert, Dr. Mavis Orekwasare, says the FDA is not working hard to protect consumers. She joins us on the line. We are grateful for your time here on the Midday News, Madam. Listening to my colleague Nancy Emefa-Dwadosi's report, it raises concerns about the safety of the food out there. But what's your own assessment of the safety of the food we buy and eat in terms of what you've seen and heard?
Thank you very much for having me. So I'd like to say, first of all, that a lot of scientists like myself have done substantive research on the quality of foods on our markets, street foods, and then in the local markets as well. And so there's nothing new in our findings. In fact, it's getting worse. And if scientists are doing the hard work and coming up with, findings that are a bit alarming, and are always putting it out there, we are doing our bit, putting it out there, and nothing is being done about it. The only stance that, some officials are taking is that consumers should protect themselves, and I feel it's a little bit disappointing. We pay, our taxes, and government employees, researchers, and workers like myself to also help, keep consumers safe. And from my personal assessment, from the research that I've done, I just feel that we are sitting on a time bomb, more or less, because people are just doing their own thing at these markets. I mean, we know it's no secret that foods are heavily adulterated, in these local markets. But then what do? We do nothing about it as officials. When I engaged somebody at the FDA, I was told that they have the market surveillance unit. And my question was, what is the market surveillance unit supposed to do? Is it just education, educating consumers? There should be, my understanding of surveillance is you're monitoring what is going on, and you should be able to give consumers, the necessary assurance that you're taking care of the issue. If it is a matter of staff, to police the market, it's a matter of lack of staff, or maybe the numbers are not enough.
But what they always say is they can be everywhere at the same time.
Of course, but you know what? We know the things that are going on in the market. I mean, a typical example of action is what you have done in Joy FM. When you visited these mills, you saw firsthand, right, what is going on. And I stumbled on this product, like the fake tomato powder, a couple of years ago, and I actually had to do part of my PhD on this product. And I realized that there's nothing tomato in the product. So they are adding corn, chaff, and annatto seeds, which you saw at the mill, and then color and some other things to it. And one thing about the products, like the dried powder that they're selling, is that it's a fraudulent activity. You cannot tell the consumer that I'm selling you tomato powder when there's nothing tomato in it. So there's the issue of fraud. There's the issue of, food safety and health implications where the consumer, for instance, if somebody is allergic to any of the components in the food, then you're putting the person at risk. So these things, we do have agencies in Ghana that are responsible for looking at fraudulent activities as well as issues when it comes to, food safety and health. So it's not enough, talking about this issue over and over again. It's not enough for the people in supposed to be helping us deal with this matter, just telling consumers to protect themselves. We need to take action, and we just play too much in this country. This is a very serious issue.
Definitely a very serious issue, but we're definitely out of time on this one. We're grateful for your time, Dr. Mavis Orekwosare. She's a food safety expert and a scientist as well, and she wants more done about the situation. Still on sanitation, though, city authorities in Kumasi say they are receiving technical support from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology to address the city's noise pollution menace. Noise detection devices developed by the university are currently being fine-tuned for deployment after initial trials. Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly Environmental Officer Isaac Basayin is optimistic that monitoring and enforcement challenges confronting the unit should be over with the new development. He spoke with Love FM's David Akwete on progress made so far in the sanitation campaign in partnership with Love FM and Inshira FM.
That the KMA bylaw states that if you want to preach or want to sell using any of these gadgets, you need to see KMA, and the KMA will give you that permit. How do you give the permit? What we'll do is you bring the gadget to an end, you look at the gadget, the type of gadget, and then we send you back to where you are going to preach, whether residential or commercial. Then we measure the noise level of that area, and then we give you hours of operation. Now, the law talks about, if it is commercial, it talks about 65 decibel at daytime. So you need to work within the 65 decibel using the machine. The machine detects the amount of noise created within any environment. So with the distance, we measure it for you, and then we give you hours of operation. What we are doing in KMA is that you need to preach from 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Some of them, you measure it for them. Whilst you are there, you operate within the noise level. But when you go, there's a problem. Fortunately, we are liaising with KNUST, and then they are coming out with a gadget, which they come to do the demonstration at the office. This gadget, it will be attached to the instrument that we are using. And then when you start operating, it will measuring when it is up to notify the office that this guy at this place is operating at above the required level.
You have there the environmental officer, the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly, Isaac Basayin, there speaking to my colleague David Akwete. Now, from sanitation, let's head on and talk about education, because the controversy still continues. Widespread public outrage on the controversial sexuality education inclusion in curriculum shows Ghanaians are not ready for importation of any alien culture. That's according to Chairman of the Peace Council, Reverend Professor Emmanuel Asante. The Education Ministry has been under intense pressure over the last 1 week to back down on any plans to roll out the CSE in schools after it emerged it was included in the teacher resource packs, contrary to the minister's earlier pronouncement. The Peace Council chairman has been speaking to Joy News on the sidelines of a forum in Accra.
That Ghanaians reacted, whether the news was factual or not, when they heard that E was going to be introduced, they reacted. It tells you that Ghanaians have values. We have a culture, and we are not ready to go to do what the other people are doing in their countries. Canada, which is a Western country, has even rejected the CSE. And there are some other countries who have done that. And the little that Ghanaians have done says that Ghana is not ready for it. And the minister has come out to say, fine. So the thing is not on. Let's take him by that. And then let us keep our eyes open. It's not something that is to be done. I think we should let sleeping dogs lie.
Now, the professor also urged for a detailed stakeholder engagement, including the clergy, to chart out appropriate ways of sex education in schools, bearing in mind the values of the country.
Having said that, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have sex education. But if we're going to have sex education, what kind of sex education? There is the need for us to bring stakeholders together. Clergy people, academics, people who are well versed in our culture, who understand sexuality, to come together to write some material that will reflect our ethos. Also mindful of the fact that we live in a global community, because you're not just going to educate your own people pretending that we are not living in a global community, because our children know more than we do when it comes to these things. They have access to the internet. That's the reason why I think that sex education now should not just be something that should target only children, but we should also target parents who are also agents of socialization in the home, so that they will be able to guide their children in the use of internet.
You heard there the chairman of the National Peace Council, Reverend Professor Emmanuel Asante. Meanwhile, president of the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council, Reverend Dr. Paul Frimpong Manso, has vowed to fight against the implementation of the controversial Comprehensive Sexuality Education Program. He, however, doubts Education Minister Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh's pronouncement that the program will not be implemented.
We are saying no today, tomorrow, and forever. It is not Ghanaians want to have. See how it is being rejected in Europe, even in Canada, in Britain, and others are following suit. But for Ghana, our position is firm, unchangeable. We are prepared to fight for the next generation. We are prepared even to give our blood.
You heard that the president of the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council, Reverend Dr. Paul Frimpong Manso there. The association is expected to address a news conference soon. We'll be live there and bring you details as well. Now let's head to the north, where the Northern Development Authority has asked the Economic and Organized Crime Organization, EOCO, to investigate its former financial officers for various procurement breaches and mismanagement. The authority, which originally was the Savannah Accelerated Development Authority, SADA, is accusing its former staff of causing financial loss to a tune of over $8 million to the state. Among the issues of concern is a botched public-private partnership agreement between SADA and Unique Savannah for the procurement of 5,000 tricycles, another tricycle project at a cost of $9.5 million. Now, out of the number of tricycles imported, 3,000 were assembled and 2,239 were released or sold, leaving some 732 under very unfriendly weather conditions since 2016. Here's Chief Executive of the Northern Development Authority, Dr. Abdul Majid Haroon.
Unique Savannah had demonstrated a clear inability to recover payments from beneficiaries of tricycles through the marketing officers and agents that they had recruited or engaged. This was strange and appeared to have been orchestrated deliberately for personal gain and collapse game master plan. Marketing officers of the Unique Savannah Limited were fingered in fraudulent inclination after they reportedly received payments from some beneficiaries but failed to account for same. In the wake of this, monies that were exported to be paid into a special account at Stanbic Bank to amortize the letter of credit guaranteed by the authority were never paid. The new management and board came into office. One of the first priorities tackled was the issue of the tricycles. The NDA board constituted an ad hoc committee to find out what really went wrong and to recommend what action should be taken.
That's the Chief Executive of the Northern Development Authority, Dr. Abdul Majid Haroon. Now, Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, Osechi Mensah-Bonsu, says the leadership of Parliament will engage the Energy Minister in order to resolve the outstanding issues surrounding the ECG and PDS concessionary agreement. Now, that agreement was suspended by government following what it describes as fundamental breaches. Now, speaking at the Meet the Press series in Accra, the majority leader said it will be necessary for Parliament to make a determination on the matter.
It will come out of this whole business. The Parliament, the leadership of Parliament, to engage the appropriate minister who shepherded this in Parliament to come to some determination on that. And when we're there, we'll see what to do.
You heard that the Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, Osei Mensah-Bonsu, there on Parliament, the need for Parliament to make a determination on the matter. We've been waiting for government to also make a final pronouncement on this, even though we've been picking up a bits and pieces of information that has been suspended as well, because earlier that was said. But let's go on the line and speak to the Executive Secretary or the Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy, Energy Think Tank, Ben Boakye. We're grateful for your time here on the Midday News. It looks like it's been long overdue. There have been calls for government to make a final determination on the matter. We've also heard from the Minister for Parliamentary Affairs also saying it looks like also raising his hands up in the air and asking that Parliament makes a determination on the matter. When exactly do we think that this will happen?
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. I think there is a need for that conversation even prior to that with the public on what the status of this whole transaction is as we speak. I think we're giving 1 month for government to come back to the public on what decisions would have been taken. And an extra month has been occasioned, and we don't know still what the decision of government is on this. In between that space, PDS is still running the infrastructure of ECG. It's still not clear what the arrangements are in respect to that. Whether they are still, working for ECG or their license has been restored. It's been also on the back of the fact that Miracle has responded to the stock exchange of the Philippines that they are contemplating pulling out of this agreement. We need to be clear what government position is on this focal so that we also know where our infrastructure really belong. And I think that is what is missing at this point.
But with that said, though, from where you stand, does it have any implication for the future of this transaction? I mean, this delay in telling us exactly what government stance is.
It does. You and I are still paying, our bills, okay? And we don't know the arrangement even around whoever is collecting the revenue now. If we're told tomorrow that the monies that were collected were not properly accounted for, the public will be called upon, like we have done in several instances, to pay whatever debt will occasion. So we need to really know what structure is in place, how our interest is protected, so that we are guaranteed that the cost that we are on to retool the distribution side of the value chain is not derailed. And I think that is really important for all of us to be sure what is being done.
We're grateful for your time. That's the Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy, Ben Boakye. We'll take a quick break here on the Midday News. When we return, the committees, Local Government and Rural Development Committee, Water Resources, Works and Housing, and Environment, Science and Technology and Innovation Committees in Parliament have been raising concerns about the sanitation situation. They say it's a sanitation crisis in the country. We'll give you details, and later we'll also get closer. There's an advice for the men. Get closer to your wife's breast and stop chasing breast outside your home.
A lot of married men have stopped going to their wives' breasts. They would rather go and look for breast outside the home to play with. They should go to their wife's breast so that if there's a lump, you will also be able to identify it.
Masa Ghana so we pay correct medicine pa e ye me kwesi super me ye super medicine ankasa because our job no enye better. They won't see how beautiful and high quality your work is. That be what them they use believe you. That be why me too. It be only super cement I they use. Cement papa. Inti me grind nyina from me kwesi super because me the super cement and dimidi.
Super cement is designed to ensure that your buildings stand strong for generations. Build with Supersem Cement. Build your dream. Build.
You're still listening to the Midday News here on Joy 99.7 FM. Let's do sports now with Benedict Owusu. Benedict, what's in sports?
Yeah, MFA now, all aspirants for the Ghana Football Association elections will know their fate today, with the vetting committee set to release the results of the qualified candidates. Now, the committee vetted 52 aspirants, for the presidency, executive council, and the regional associations. While the management member of Accra Great Olympics, Oluboy Commodore, says it will be a big blow should any of the presidential candidates be disqualified.
What may be a distraction or something is when we are told tomorrow that one of them does not qualify on any ground or so, but otherwise they are all capable people.
But would that be a big blow? Should one of them, not qualify to stand for this election?
Yes, it will be a big blow because this campaign started a year ago. And it is now that we are going to do the vetting and disqualify or approve someone. To be a big blow, people have spent money, other people have taken sides and have made it known. All these people may have to change direction, and it is not easy.
Well, Olubo Komodo is a management member at Accra Great Olympics. So last night we saw action in the UEFA Champions League where the likes of Liverpool, Barcelona all won their respective games. Well, tonight is a turn of the guys in the Europa League. And of course, when you talk about that, they wouldn't want to hear, especially their fans. Manchester United are in action. They are away to play AZ Alkmaar, and then Arsenal will be at the Emirates Stadium where they will play host to Standard Liège. There's Sevilla upon Nicosia. Young Boys will take on Rangers, and then Saint-Etienne of France will come up against Wolfsburg, with Besiktas playing against Wolverhampton Wanderers, and then CSK Moscow will come up against Spanish side Espanyol. That's for sports.
Thank you very much, Benedict. Now, 3 committees in Parliament have declared a sanitation crisis in Ghana as it demands immediate action from government following a tour across the country. The committees include the Local Government and Rural Development Committee, Water Resources, Works and Housing, and Environment, Science and Technology and Innovation Committee. Nilanti Vanderpoy is a member of the joint committees.
What we've decided to do is that the minute we have laid the paper after the debate, the 3 committees will have another joint meeting with the ministers responsible for the various areas, the Minister of Local Government, Minister of Water and Sanitation, Minister of Environment. We shall engage with them, also engage with the Minister of Finance, so that we see what he can do under the circumstance we find ourselves to make sure we have a very fine arrangement that will create sustainable. And one of the things that I haven't talked about, one thing we saw is that these waste management plants, the recycling plants like Haricop and the rest, if they are built, well, I should not be here acting as a consultant to government, but I think that all this they are talk about job creation will have been solved. Because if these institutions are employing, let's say, about 100 people at once, 16 is 1,600 jobs. And not to talk about all these tricycle people who are bringing their refuse there, to talk about the recycling that will come out, the sort of products that will come out of it, the byproducts, and what it will be used for. So it's a whole chain that government need to look at. The value chain, the backward integration, the forward integration in waste management will help government.
You have Nilanti Vanderpoy. Now, the Biakuya District Director of Health has urged pregnant women to ensure their location is not far from health facilities when their due dates get closer. The timely intervention of Rita Urapa and another public health officer, Rose Sayivo, saved the life of a woman in labor in the middle of the road in Dambai in the Oti region. Rita and Rose encountered the woman in distress on a motorbike with no help and immediately assisted her deliver her baby. Speaking on the Super Morning Show, Madam Rapa said both mother and baby are doing well, but had a word of caution for pregnant women.
Mother and baby are very fine. They are very fine.
Were there any complications as a result of where she gave birth?
No complication, but it's just a normal care that the mother had and was switched by the midwife at the health facility. I'll only plead to the men to support their wives, and every woman is supposed to be taken through during antenatal service because how labor sets in and when they are supposed to report at the hospital for delivery. Because if labor is supposed to take 8 hours, and I don't know when she set off from the house and she delivered on the way, it means something might be wrong somewhere. Sometimes the women don't comply with the information given them. But if you know the situation in which you are, she should have even set off earlier, a day before.
You heard Rita Urapa, she's the Biakuya District Director of Health. Meanwhile, Chief Executive Officer of the National Ambulance Service, Professor Ahmed Nuhu Zakaria, says despite government taking delivery of 96 ambulances, the vehicles cannot be used unless training of users is done. He's been explaining why in reaction to the story of the delivery of a woman in the middle of the road.
The ambulances have started arriving, and the very first 48 that arrived were cleared and have been sent to the forecourt of the Parliament House. Then other next 48 have also been cleared and they're also being sent there.
So these are ready retrofitted ambulances that can take care of the sick?
Yes, but definitely the suppliers want the ambulances to arrive. They'll come and do user training, both the vehicle and then the equipment. So they definitely, as part of the arrangement, want to come when a sizable number of the vehicles are in.
What do you mean by sizable number?
There is a planned program in terms of the delivery and the training, and it also entails handing over to government.
When is this process supposed to be resolved, to finish?
By the end of the year.
Now, men, listen up. I have an advice for you. Well, it's not my advice though, but get closer to your wife's breast and stop chasing breasts outside your home. That's the advice of President of Breast Care International, Beatrice Riafia-Dai, was saying that. And according to her, if men could assist their wives detect lumps in their breasts, it could lead to early treatment. Now, as you know, the entire month of October is dedicated to breast cancer awareness, and you've heard it also on the Cosmopolitan Makes a Survivor story as well. There's more. You would have to tune in and listen, but we can listen to Beatrice Riafia-Dai, President of Breast Care International, with that advice.
A lot of married men have stopped going to their wives' breasts. They would rather go and look for breasts outside the home to play with. They should go to their wives' breasts so that if there's a lump, you will also be able to identify it.
I'll give you more, but it's good advice. Why do you go chasing other breasts when you have breasts at home? What's trending on social media, Mafito?
All right, trending on social media is hashtag open up legal education. And this one is from Daniel Kusu, who says 2019 entrance exam is a scam that needs to be investigated. At Miss_Tete says, as a parent, student, friend, sister or brother, I'm going to be there to support a worthy fight. Hashtag open up legal education. At Nana Chris says, there comes a time when people get tired of being pushed out. There comes a time when enough takes on its true meaning. There comes a time. The time for a total reform of Ghana's legal education is now. And this one is from the Law Students Union, who say, we're not backing down till we see positive change. The practice of the law should not be the preserve of a few. Hashtag open up legal education.
There's more news when you log on to myjoyonline.com. I am Memefa Pau. Thanks for your company.
So everyone says I'm a Kosia Philip, but it's not like I'm nosy.